All right, here we go.
Get ready to supercharge.
Getting all our pieces together. Got everyone connecting in across several different channels now, and I think we're ready to get going. All right, everyone. So today we want to talk about change leader pressure and different aspects of it, what's coming from that, and really what to do about it. So we'll go and jump into those things and see what we can do to help you guys get a better understanding of how to take those on. So this fits into our change leadership series that you see over on the right-hand side. And we did new ones for most of the second half of this year, and this is one of them. So some new content for all of you, and hopefully a nugget or two that'll help you out as well. But we want to come back to this and start really with this idea. What is this joy at work thing? Roxanne and I talk about joy at work all the time. So what is it? We see it as an employee willingness to do these things, participate and commit, be accountable, trust, belong, act with cohesion, adapt and grow, demonstrate respect and act with integrity. And it exists when the company, the leaders and managers of the company, continually create the conditions and extend the invitation for employees to contribute in this way. And the employees constantly accept that invitation. And it's that back and forth that really matters. That's where the secret sauce really is, that invitation is being presented. So the organization has a responsibility here. And then the employees are stepping in and accepting that invitation. Employees have a responsibility here as well. And it's those together, that kind of back and forth together, that makes it great. And our very simple model is that managing change has an impact on joy at work. And so how that is actually done is the driver of what really happens. So change that is managed well, even change that you may not particularly like, can have a really positive impact on the culture, can grow joy at work. And unfortunately, the converse happens as well. Things that don't go so well are going to diminish what's going on in the culture. And it's these 10 dimensions on the right-hand side here that are the indicators of joy at work. And we're going to zoom in a bit on commitment for this session, because it fits nicely with what we're talking about when we think about change leader pressure. And so this is what we mean specifically by commitment. Commitment is a willingness to remain focused and keep promises, even when achieving them becomes difficult and requires additional effort. So I'm sure that's intuitive for everyone here, but just to give you how we're thinking about it and how that kind of comes together. And this is going to pop up as we go through our time together for talking about change leader pressure.
Yeah, and we create these definitions so that you can recognize the signs of employees behaving this way or not, and the risks that inevitably come when people don't behave this way.
Right. And you can see all of these in our guide to joy at work, and you can find that or find a link to that on our website if you're interested in diving in more. But for today, for this session, this is what we want to talk about. We want to get in from the leader's point of view and really try to understand what's happening. Take a look at the skills that you need to have and how do you know if you're ready, and then, well, all right, what are you going to do about it? So how we're going to go actually take action on these things and make some stuff happen. So we want to really understand what might be in the way here, right? So pressure, right? There's this change pressure that's on the leader, and we want to see what we can do to understand what that is, and then hopefully try and make it just a little bit, easier for all of you, for all of us. And the questions that seem to help focus in on this are these two. So if you're a change practitioner, what are you asking the leader to do? And what's at risk for them if they do this? If you're the leader and you're engaged, you can ask the same question. What do you need to go do? And what is at risk for you if you go and do these things, right? And those can really help to focus in on what's going on and start to provide a little bit of clarity but probably gets better as you dive in a little further. So we want to walk you through a bit of a framework that we have to try and understand that, and then we'll talk about an example.
Right. So we put this together, this notion of leadership pressure in a change context. The idea behind this is leaders are easy targets for just anything that goes wrong. Of course, all of us have experienced being led by leaders who don't lead well. But there's also this other thing where they are easy targets to be blamed for anything going wrong. So we thought it would be useful for you to see what is the leadership pressure. When you put it across these 5 phases of change, this is how we think of it. So phase 1 is you're getting started, you're solidifying the vision. And the pressure you hear from others is, what is this change? Why are we doing this? And is this really going to happen? Initially, there's always some amount of skepticism for lots of legitimate reasons. The pressure that leaders feel themselves is, did we make the right decision, the right change decision? Are we ready to handle this? And am I prepared to handle all of the questions and reactions that come? So that's just getting started. And then when you are in the mode of investigating and gathering stakeholder reactions to this announcement of a change, the pressure leaders hear from others is, when will decisions be made? How soon can I get more information? And when can I provide my recommendations? And then the pressure they feel internally is, are we getting the important things done? Right, that's prioritization. And are other leaders engaging in this with me? Because inevitably, other leaders need to participate in leading their teams to change. And then when you move to create, which is when you start deciding what to do based on everything you know about the change and how it impacts people, the pressure leaders feel is, when is help going to be available? And when can I see a finished product? And then the pressure that leaders feel internally is, are people listening and paying attention? And will we hit our public deadlines? And there's irony in this first one. Are people listening and paying attention is kind of the worry that, yes, I'm getting pressure from people who are paying attention, but what about those that aren't? Are they going to be missed and will later regret it? And so now when you're in this implementing, you're executing the plan, the pressure they feel from others is, when can I get more help? Because they start to really internalize the implications of the change. And when will we be done with this already? And then the internal pressure is, are people making progress? Have we accounted for everyone that's impacted? And are we seeing any benefit yet? There's always that pressure. Finally, wrapping up the change, people ask, what was accomplished and was it all worth it? And then the internal pressure, it goes back to the beginning. Did we make the right decision? Did we get the results we were looking for? How did I perform and how will I be evaluated? And we share this with you because leadership roles are inherently vulnerable roles. We often ask our leaders to be vulnerable. We're actually pretty vulnerable already. And this illustrates a context in which they feel this vulnerability and this pressure. So we thought we'd share this with you because that's certainly the experience that we've had directly and that we have experienced through working with others.
So you can look at this and go, oh my goodness, being a change leader is fraught with pressure. And yeah, it is. But the value we see is by laying this out and thinking about these questions, now you go do something about it, right? And try and get in front of it so that you're either helping yourself, or if you're a change practitioner working with a leader or a group of leaders, how do you help them be able to take this on and do what they need to do in order to lead the group and have that flow throughout the rest of the organization so that your change has a way better shot of being successful. And so we want to talk a little bit about that inside of a few examples here, right? So we have our 3 people that are here, each with significant jobs to play, and they have some changes that are going on around them, right? So Jess is dealing with this new system rollout. And, she's seen this kind of stuff before, didn't really go that great. She's not super confident, and she's concerned that it's all coming down on her head. She's going to be blamed and have to clean up the mess for all of this. Jade's got this digital focus, and he's got worries about how hard this is to translate into something really concrete for his group to go do. Seems like a big waste of money, and we're experimenting, and he's not really sure going to get any value of this. And Zakia has had this track record of having these highly engaged employees, and no one talked to her about putting this new thing in, and sort of seems unnatural and really overdone to her. And she would be spending the money and even spending the time on this thing. So pressure on all of them. And so we want to take this in a few layers. So you can imagine yourself as the leader for all three of these people, and look at them and go, what is up with my team, and how do I take this on? And this is where the phrase change resistance and sometimes change fatigue starts to come into play. And so a good question is this really resistance? Do they just not want to do it? Is that what they're about? Or do they have some stuff in here that might be kind of legitimate? And that might be some of the things to think about as you're trying to understand what the pressure is on them, if you're their boss, what the pressure is that you might be feeling as a result of that. And then if you're a change practitioner, the help that you may be able to give, you're probably feeling the pressure as well, because you're in the middle of this thing, and trying to understand how to pull all that together. And so this is a place where we see this flow of change resistance can come in. And we are going to differentiate from what a lot of other people say. So they'll say change resistance because, people just don't like change. And we actually don't believe that. So we see the people having legitimate reasons based on their experience for why it is that they might have actions and words that would seem like they're resistance. And you'd be much better served to try to understand that, to go do something about it. Because if you take the point of view of, people just don't like change, that can lead you to we'll just hammer it in. And right. I'm sure all of you are experienced enough to know that's not very effective. So what else could we do that would be a bit better than, right? So we could look in deeper, right, a bit, and go, what is up with Jade, right? What's really going on here? And it could be, that's great, but, my team's invested in a bunch of other stuff. And how do I explain this big shift I got to make for them? And I don't even know if this thing's going to work. And what am I supposed to do about that? And how do I share this with my team? He is feeling a lot of pressure that's coming from this change. So what can we do to go help him out so that he can do a better job at this thing?
Yeah. And I just love that it says potentially unstated yet reasonable response.
Right. So if this is what's in his head, is Jade, he just doesn't like change, he's a resistor. No, I mean, he's got other priorities. He's trying to make things happen. He is actively engaged in trying to make the work. And now this other thing has come in, and he's just trying to deal with it. Right. It's not trying to resist it necessarily. He's trying to balance all this stuff. And so how do we help Jade out to be able to go do that? And that's what we want to try and get to here, right? There's a little bit of taking a self-inventory, and there's a little bit of guidance in here as well. And we'll take a look at kind of both of those ideas. But this is the core view that Roxanne and I have about this, right? The change leader's role is to create the conditions that make it easier and safe for people to do things in this new way. So if we think about Jade, that applies to Jade's boss. So what's Jade's boss doing to do that? Then what is Jade doing to do that, to make it easier for all of his folks? So yeah, it's a very legitimate concern. If he's got two other major priorities and we're about to land this other third technology change on top of him, and he's got concerns about how it's all going to go together, of course he's going to have worries about how to take that whole thing on. If you're a change practitioner working with Jade, how can you help him do that? If you're Jade, how do you think about what's going on? If you're Jade's boss, what can you do to help everyone that's engaged in this come together? And that's really what we're advocating for here. So we would start with a little self-assessment, right? How would I rate my skills that are connected into change leadership? So listening and communicating, encouraging, influencing, just thinking about those. What does that really mean? How good a job am I doing managing my mood and my reactions? So do I let it all out? And everybody knows what I'm thinking? Possibly not the best leader move, but that would be useful to take a look at that. How well am I doing in just seeing what's going on with others? How adaptable am I? Am I really adaptable? Like many people say, oh yeah, I'm adaptable, but think about some examples of how adaptable you are. And it's not to put judgment on that. It's just to understand where's your go-to place. How do you take that on as an individual? And finally, how self-aware are you? And the most important question about anything that's like that is, how do you know? Because you could say, I'm super self-aware. Well, great. How do you know you're super self-aware?
Right.
And really try and get in your head around what's going on with that. So just a bit of an inventory to start to think about those things. And then really taking an analysis in of the situation. And we're going to give you a bit of a tool to help you with this, but we'll talk first about the idea of it and then get a little bit deeper into it. So truly, what are you being asked to do exactly? Like really understanding that. And if you don't know, go find out. That's part of what we're going to help you to do. What's really the risk here to you as an individual, as well as the team? And then how does that ripple out? And then where's your confidence level? I mean, maybe this thing's a slam dunk and you really got it together. Maybe you have no idea. And that's really scary, right? To have that, certainly that's a pressure driver to not know how to judge the confidence of the initiative itself. And then thinking about your people, how confident are you in them? And then what are all the opportunities that are here? How could you think about the opportunities for what goodness can come for you and the team should this go well? What are the opportunities within the effort itself in order to help drive and make some good things happen? So thinking about both of those, first yourself and then the situation. And then we would always come to this as the beginning of it. If you're a leader, what do you intend? And how do you set that intention? If you're a change practitioner helping a leader, even you still have an intention. What's your intention as a change practitioner? But also, how do you help your leader set that intention? So just asking these questions, what do you want the experience of the change process to be like for all the people? And how do you want them to feel about it? It's interesting to set that question up and ask people to step into it, because we sometimes get a, what do you mean? Where's it going to do the change? I'm like, yeah, but if you do the change and everybody hates it, what do you think the chances are that it's going to go well? If you do the change and people feel supported and understand what's going on, that has to have an improvement on the probability of that change going well. So I want to think about what that experience is. And that doesn't always have to be fireworks and explosions and celebrations. Sometimes that experience is, it just goes smoothly. It doesn't interrupt all the other things I've got going on. That's a perfectly fine way to think about it when you've got all this other stuff happening.
Yeah, we've set goals of, it feels like a non-event, right? That in that particular situation or those particular situations makes the most sense. So that's the intention.
Yeah. And so this is the second one. What's the success criteria? Well, in Roxanne's example, it's a non-event. It went in, nobody was mad. All the other work that you have to do because you're slam full is able to continue. And so it was a success if those things happen. And you can state that, and they'll come up with metrics to help you understand that. And then work with the leadership team so you can align around that, because you may find that you'll get a wide variety. There have been things that we've done where we were shooting for just, okay, we just want the thing to land, everyone's just be undisturbed by it. And others are talking about, when are we going to do the big celebration? You're like, no, we're not doing that, right? Because our intention that we said was to do this other more low-key thing. And part of the way to get to all of that is to really understand, what does a great team look like, right? So part of your intention may be, how does the change team or my team that's going through the change move forward through all of this? What are those things that you would want to have happen? And here are some answers that we've received when we've asked people this question to describe the best team you've ever led or been part of. And it's just a way to anchor yourself on things that have worked before, because hopefully you've seen that, hopefully many times, seeing what a great team can be. Probably not every time, but hopefully many times. And by reflecting on that, you can bring things forward that you can use in the team that you have now. Again, whether you're a leader who has responsibility for the team or a change practitioner that's working with the leaders on this, it applies in both dimensions. And then given all that, now you can start to tune into other people's points of view. All right, so I want the team to be like this. This is what I really understand. Now I start to think about the others. What do I need them to do differently? Like really, what are they doing? Like every day, every week, whatever it is, and how big of a deal is this from them, from their point of view? You know, you could be the leader and go, I've got 5 other more enormous things going on. Jade might be thinking that. But from the people on the team, it's a big deal, right? So just because it's not for the leader doesn't mean it isn't for them. So what's their expectation when this comes to them and why? How did things go recently? They'll give you an idea of where their head is as they start this. And then what would make it easier for them to make the transition? And that can be a tough question for some people, because we will sometimes get a, what do you mean by that? Or what do you mean make it easier? They just to do it. I'm like, yeah, of course, but could we do something to make it easier for them to do it? And that could be everywhere from a little paper job aid to a question and answer period to on the day of the change, you're passing donuts and coffee out in the morning. I don't, who knows what it's going to be. It could be different things for different teams for different reasons. And there can be very much deeper things that you may be doing for months, or something very specific you're doing on the day of. There's a whole variety of different things that you might do, and you're opening your mind up to think about those things and really understand where they are and where they're going to land. That's going to be important to help people to be able to move through this entire process. All right, so once you understand those things, now I want to get ready for how we talking about it and how do we really communicate. And this is where we'll help out a little bit with some specifics here, because deciding how to do the communication, what you're going to communicate, that's a big deal. I'm sure all of you have experienced this, so you know that, right? So working with the leadership team to understand all the 5 W's on what's going on here and what the benefits are, start thinking about what the questions might be that people will ask, and then how are you going to commit? Here's that word commit, to keep everyone informed about this. And this is a big deal. And I will tell you from my personal experience, not always obvious because I've messed this up. Fortunately, with Roxanne's help, I was able to do a better job. But committing to communicate, even if you don't know anything, that's the part I didn't get. Why would I have a communication meeting to tell people I don't know anything new? That did not seem obvious to me. But the regularity of it is an amazing salve to people, that just to keep them calm, like, okay, Ed's not hiding anything. He's talking to us and even telling us that he doesn't know something is valuable to know. And this is the tool that we would suggest you use. Very simple. So just understand what is changing, what are we doing, then get into the whys. Why are we doing this thing? What's working, the benefits, how it's happening, when it's happening, and then what's the next thing that everyone's going to start noticing? What will they see as a result of starting to walk through this change? And you will find almost for sure that when you go through this thing, you do not know the answers to all this at the beginning. And that's okay, and probably actually a sign that you're doing it right. Because if you can actually fill everything out and you know it all, I might be a little bit nervous because you may be late. You might be like up against the change. Now we know everything, but you haven't communicated to anybody yet. So being in front of it is good, right? And to know the things that you need to fill in as you walk through it. But this is just a super simple way to think about it. And if you want to use these and only these questions, great. But we do have a guide if you want to use it. And so Roxanne and I have created a few of these do-it-yourself guides, right? So how could you take these things on? And we just charge this super nominal $2 fee that we don't even keep. So we'll ask you to pick one of these 3 charities and we'll donate it to the charity, and you can get to it from the QR code that you see here. and just indicate which one you want to do. So we've been donating to the Ukrainian Red Cross, which is there for unfortunate but obvious reasons. The JDRF is the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, which has been something that I've supported for a long time. Ricky's Refuge is an animal rescue area here in Virginia that Roxanne has been supported for a long time. It's this enormous preserve. I don't even know how many dozens and dozens of acres they have, but it's gigantic. And they have hundreds of animals that they've rescued there. So anyway, three really worthwhile organizations. So if you want a little bit more help on that, you can get that out of this guide, but the questions themselves are valuable as well. And then now you're delivering the message. You figure the whole thing out. Now you're trying to deliver the message and be as clear as you possibly can about what's going on. So what is changing and what's not? The change story is going to help you out with that. Trying to connect it back to why are you doing it, which would likely be back to the purpose of the company, group, the values. Talk about all those things you don't know. It's okay to say, I don't know. You just want to also commit to, I'm going to talk to you on a regular basis about what's going on. And that regularness is going to depend on the change, right? Maybe it's every single day because this is a super fast change and it's going to be over in a couple of weeks. Or maybe it is every week, every other week, whatever it is. Could even change through time. Maybe you start off slow and it gets more frequent as you get closer to the change. Just think your way through what it's going to be, but commit to being regular and then listen. Hear what there is to hear from people, and then commit, again, that word commitment, to keeping people informed all the way through, right? And updates on what are you doing? They give you feedback. What are you doing with it? And if you're not doing something with it, why? Like we heard you say that you wanted free donuts every morning. We're not doing that. Here's why. Not, whatever it is, just try and be clear about what's going on so that people know that you've heard them and you've considered what it is. You don't necessarily have to do it, but you need to tell them why you are not doing it. And if you are doing something, well, what is it? What are you doing to go take action on their stuff? This is really trying to get to be a demonstration of your intention, right? We talked about at the very beginning. What do you intend here? What do you really want to go do? And try and zoom in on that so you can be clear about what's going on with it and how all of that is going to work. And it really kind of gets to, all right, well, what's the story of our team going to be with all of this? And you may think that we are really having a place where we can be able to pull all this together because this is how I'm going to drive joy at work. So maybe an example is this: people understand why it's important and feel good about why we're working from the office. If you're thinking about that kind of a change, people are generous and respectful of each other's needs. People are focused on collaborating, whatever it is, just be able to state what your intention is, to be clear about what it is that you're putting together, and recognize that it starts with the leader, right? So before change can happen, the leader must change first. And that is not always 100% obvious to everybody, but it's immensely important to do it that way and to really think about that. And a way to kind of connect back into that is this idea of this empathy cycle that the change leader can take on, right? So we talked about these things. Do you understand the impact? Have you asked the questions about what's going on? Now you're delivering the message. You're communicating what's happening here. And then you're listening, we're looking, and because you're trying to get reactions from everybody and understand what are you going to do with that information? What are you going to do with those reactions, which may tell you something else about the impact, and around you go. And that's why we think of it as a cycle, because you're continuing to try and take those things on and really listen and understand what's happening with all of that. And that feeds into this model. Right. So how you take that on, how you manage the change is going to impact what the culture is. And so that idea of commit keeps coming up here. Like, where are you going to lean in? Can't be everywhere. No one's got energy for all that. You're going to have to choose where those places are that you can actually lean in and commit to particular things that help move the change forward, not just to accomplish the change, but also to have an impact on the culture, to grow joy at work. So as a little bit of help with that, we do have this mini course on setting an intention. And so it'll help with really the clarifying how you want to think about the change, and it'll help you with making decisions that are based on that intention. It helps you get it clear on it. And we have this as a front end actually for our change management certification course, but we pulled this little piece out as a mini course because we see it as valuable for people by itself. Like just even doing this piece can make such a huge improvement in how you think about taking on the change that might be in front of you and your team. And that covers the things that we wanted to talk about today. We'll pick up on our decision-making theme next time, and we'll talk about group decision-making. We've talked about individual decision-making previously with our good decision hygiene. This one's going to be about when you truly have to make a group decision. How do you go about doing that without causing a whole bunch of chaos? And I feel super confident in saying all of you have experienced trying to make a group decision that was very chaotic and didn't go well. We have some thoughts on that, as well as some steps you can take to make it better. So that's really it. I want to say thank you for spending some time with us and walking through us on this and really thinking about how to take on change leader pressure. As always, we would love to hear from folks about what is going on and how things are landing for them or not. So here's the different ways to get in contact with us. Please send us a message, find us on LinkedIn and connect with us that way. And also, if you've got thoughts on other things that you'd like to hear from us or other questions that you would love to hear answered, we use those, and that helps drive the kinds of things that we talk about. The things that we've been doing in this half of the year have been driven by those kinds of questions. So thanks very much, everybody. We appreciate your time and hope that you will join us for an upcoming session as well. Take care.